Okay, thanks a lot. Hello, everybody. My name is Tom Timbrooks, and I am running for Oregon's 6th Congressional District for House of Representatives of Washington, D.C. There's my little flyer. I'm going to change some of that stuff around as we go by. I guess it's not terrifically professional to have a beer and a cigar on your little thing on your campaign poster, but you know, I got the Marine Corps symbol and everything, so I guess it all evens out, you know. Anyways, so today I'm going to be talking about some other stuff, and let's see what I want to talk about. Recently, well, not recently, but ever since Trump has been in office, and he's been putting all of his efforts into, you know, ICE and trying to deport the illegal aliens and so forth. He's been getting really, really heavily scrutinized by a lot of people. You know, and they're saying, hey, you shouldn't be deporting all these people. It's illegal. It's immoral. Blah blah blah, and everything. And I kind of wanted to talk about that. I wanted to have a, well, like I said, I'd like to have a discussion, but there's nobody here to discuss with. So instead of a discussion here on stage, where you know all the people, tell you what, I'm going to tell you what I think, and then if you think something different, well, just leave a comment. And I mean, right now, I'm not getting a lot of feedback on my videos. A couple weeks ago, I put out a video, and it just recently got like 250 views, and that's my #1 video so far. So I've gotten like maybe 5 comments back, and you know, when people comment right now, I don't have a lot of viewers or a lot of people commenting. So yeah, if you have a comment, go ahead and leave a comment, and I'll try to get back with you. That'll be our forum instead of like a live discussion. We'll discuss that. But anyways, so I want to talk about the whole thing about you know, America's our immigration policy, because America is a fairly unique country, and in that every country on the planet has really, really high standards on who can come to that country, and once they get there, what you have to do in order to stay there. I mean, Mexico, for example, has got really high standards for if you want to live in Mexico, if you want to migrate to Mexico, become a Mexican citizen, you have, I mean, there's a really high bar. You have to, you know, like in America and the United States, you don't really have to learn the language, but it's kind of expected that you be able to get along. If you can't learn the language, you know, you don't have to leave. It's just going to be difficult for you. Well, in Mexico, if you can't learn the language, you're deported. They send you back to wherever you came from and everything. So yeah, there's like some other countries, very, very high standards. South Korea. South Korea is a very, very difficult country to migrate to. They just have incredible standards. You know, first of all, you have to be of South Korean descent. So like a person like myself, Irish, Scottish, Scandinavian, you know, Choctaw Indian, I can't migrate to South Korea, but South Korean people can come to the United States all day long. Okay, so United States is a very unique country in that we pretty much accept anybody. You know, just come on over, you know, join the party, have a good time, and we'll see where we can fit you, that kind of thing. So yeah, we're kind of unique. Now, our uniqueness, and I want to start off here, our founding promise. Our uniqueness comes from our founding document, the Declaration of Independence, which promises life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, and not just for American citizens, but for all people, all humans. You know, inalienable rights. It's not granted by their rulers, it's granted by God. Okay, and we recognize that in our Declaration of Independence, that all men are endowed by their Creator, which is God, with these inalienable rights: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so, because the United States of America is founded on the principle of all human beings having these inalienable rights, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, the government of the United States has the responsibility ultimately to ensure these rights are observed, to ensure that anybody living in the United States, anybody considered an American citizen, anybody who has to deal with the American legal system is granted these rights. These rights are respected. Okay, so, because that's our founding document, that's our founding principle, it's our founding ideology, America is sort of unique in the situation of people migrating to America. We have to respect everybody's rights as a human being, and we have to respect that these rights are provided by God and not by the president or a king or a senator or a governor or anybody like that. They are endowed by God, our Creator. Okay, so to go back on this policy would be to commit a sin against God, and so we take these, we hold these truths to be self-evident. We really take this stuff seriously in America, which we should, because every other country in the world, I've checked this out. I have checked this out, and you have America, and you have every other country in the world. And if you check very carefully, every other country in the world is not America, okay? So, yeah, we're America. We're expected to have a higher standard. We maintain a higher standard for ourselves. So let's go through the little slide here, okay? So now, anytime somebody comes to America, they have certain expectations, and not everybody that comes to America is a refugee. Some people migrate here, they're like, hey, America's got some good job opportunities, some good educational opportunities. I'd like to go to America just for a better job or better living conditions or something like that. But you have many, many people who come to America as refugees. They are escaping a bad situation, all right? Now, if a refugee is coming to America to escape a bad situation, it's kind of up to America to make sure, if we bring that person in, we have to kind of protect that person from that bad situation, right? So the refugee's expectation coming to America, people flee oppressive regimes seeking rule of law. And that's what we have in America. We have rule of law. So the expectation is that the refugee will get protection from religious or criminal codes that they escaped. And America's uniqueness, so rights are secured by law and not ideology. And I don't want to pick on any one group. There are, like in Central America, South America, you have the cartels, the drug cartels, and these drug cartels are held together with criminal codes. A code of silence, a code of obedience, and so forth. And you have people in that part of the world who want to get away from governments and neighborhoods and just, this rule of lawlessness. If America has rule of law, they have rule of lawlessness. They want to escape that rule of lawlessness, so they come to America, a place where their rights are secured through rule of law. Okay, now, you also have certain religious codes, and Sharia law is a very big one that's coming up a lot lately. Everybody's talking about how the America's Muslim community wants to observe Sharia law. Now, I am not an expert on Sharia law, but I have looked into Sharia law, And to be completely honest, I don't find anything really objectionable about Sharia law as long as it doesn't interfere with American constitutional law. Okay? Now, people who have cherry-picked parts of Sharia law will bring up things like under Sharia law, an 8-year-old girl can be promised to a 45-year-old man. 45, 50, 60-year-old man can marry a 12-year-old girl. Things of that nature. And yes, Sharia law does allow for that kind of thing, but I mean, Mormon law used to allow for that kind of thing also. And so this is where rule of law comes in to take precedence over rule of ideology. Okay, so people who come to America trying to get away from rule of ideology so that they can live with rule of law, they prefer rule of law over rule of ideology, they could observe Sharia law. I mean, Sharia law is just, it's a little more strict code. It's like, let's say you have a neighborhood association, and your neighborhood association says, well, you can't park your car on the streets, you have to bring your trash in, for your trash can in by this time, you can't have children playing outdoors after this time, blah, blah, blah. It's just, Sharia law is a somewhat more strict observance of the Islamic religion. Okay, so as long as the Sharia law does not interfere with the American rule of law, there's really no problem. I don't really have any problem with Sharia law. Okay, so anyways, let's go on to this. The examples of oppression abroad, the theocratic rule, which is what I'm talking about, forced to commit violent acts against conscience, like acid attacks and religious policing, okay? Now, the acid attacks I'm talking about, this is one of the things with Sharia law, okay? And this is my personal experience with this. I used to work over in Austin, Texas at the Applied Materials Manufacturing Department. And while I worked there, I talked to this guy, and he had some problems with his hands. And I asked, what's the problem you have with your hands? And he says, well, I got some acid on them. I said, when did that happen? Well, when I was in Afghanistan. He says, he was in the Army, he was in Afghanistan, and he was securing one of those places, you know, it's just a little fort, little fortification, and he was securing this fortification, and he saw, in the middle of the night, he had his little night scope, and he was looking out, and he saw, here's a man, and this man is with another person, so he figured he'd go out, I better go out and check this out to see what's happening. Well, here, this man was out in the middle of nowhere with his daughter, and he had a bottle of acid. And basically what was going to happen is his daughter said or did something that displeased him. And as punishment, he was going to take this acid and he was going to pour the acid on his daughter's face. And this is fairly typical. This is a typical thing that happens in countries like Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, so forth. And it's not so much to do with the Islamic faith, okay? It's not so much the Islamic faith that forces it. What it is, there is, I'm going to say like 99% of the people who observe the Islamic faith do not find it to be a good or appetizing, a positive thing to splash acid on your daughter's face, okay? I'm going to just go out and say like at least 95% of the people in the Muslim world. Because, I mean, if you're a man and you've got like 5 daughters, you know, 6, 8 daughters or whatever, and one of them says something that upsets you, I mean, that's just what children do. Children say things and do things that upset their parents worldwide, right? That's just part of being a parent, is learning how to deal with your children, saying and doing things that upset you. That's just being a dad, okay? 99% of the people on the face of the earth, 99% of the people in the Muslim community don't think it's appropriate to splash acid on your daughter's face. But here's the thing, the 1% that think it is appropriate are going to be able to enforce their code, and they're going to be able to wait around until, hey, all the police are gone, anybody who can enforce any rules or laws are gone, and so they're going to jump over here. They're going to say, well, if you don't splash acid on your daughter's face for being belligerent, we're going to do these horrible, nasty, terrible things to your entire family, so do it or we'll do this. Okay, so you've got 1% of the population that are threatening 99% of the population, okay? And so these people, these Muslim people who come to the United States from Afghanistan, Pakistan, Iran, Iraq, these Muslim countries, more than likely they're coming to America because they don't want to subject their daughters to this crazy acid attack mentality. Okay, and so that's what I'm talking about with this slide, is that under theocratic rule, like the Islam regimes, these people are forced to commit violent acts against conscience. Like I said, if you have a daughter, you don't want to splash acid in your daughter's face. It's against your conscience. It's just crazy. Okay, so you want to leave a place that requires you. You would like to leave a country, to go away from a country where you are encouraged to splash acid on your daughter's face. And the way you're encouraged is by being threatened. If you don't splash acid on your daughter's face, we're going to take all your other daughters and do horrible things to them, so you better do this or else, okay? And that's just like 1% of the population that's ruling over 99%, okay? And so that's the way that happens. Now, in places like India, you have the Hindu religion, which is a caste-based religion, and it is an oppressive one, where the lower castes are pressured into degrading and inhumane tasks. And the lowest caste in India, the lowest caste is called the untouchables. Okay, and you have the higher castes. Basically, the higher castes will tell the lower castes what to do. But these people in the Hindu religion, the lower castes, their belief is that whatever they do in this life is going to affect them in the next life, their reincarnation. So basically, what you do in this life, you're going to be reincarnated to the higher caste, and then the higher, and ultimately you're going to be reincarnated into the highest possible caste, which is why the lower caste will do what the highest caste says without question, because the Hindu religion is based on the belief that the people who are in the highest caste, they have lived their lives 5, 6 times, maybe 10 or 12 times in order to get to the highest caste. So the Hindu religion is the belief that with the reincarnation of the soul, reincarnation of the person, you go to the higher caste, and having respect for the higher caste is basically having respect for somebody who has lived their life several times over to get to that position. Okay, so there are people who, they're Hindu, and they like the Hindu religion. It's a religion they were born into. They've lived with that religion. They like the religion. They just don't like being given these menial, dehumanizing, subservient tasks. So they come to America. They come to America to escape the persecution and the subservience and the menial tasks. They don't like living under that rule, so they come to America, where instead of rule of ideology, we have rule of law. Okay, and the great thing about rule of law is that over a period of time it can change. Okay, and let me get to the other one here with the criminal syndicates. Criminal syndicates like MS-13, the gangs enforce their own laws through fear and violence. Okay, and so get back to here. With these three codes, okay, you have the theocratic, the ideology of the Islamic thing, the Hindu thing, the MS-13 gang thing. These codes never change. With MS-13, just like all criminal codes, silence. You didn't see that. You didn't see anything. And none of what you may have seen is any of your business. So all you have to know is this, okay? Like, what is it? Yeah, this guy fell backwards onto a knife 16 times. That's all you need to know, that kind of thing. You know, it's well, it sounds like the guy was murdered. Yeah, but you don't, it's none of your business, so shut up and get out of here. You know, forget about it, that kind of thing, right? And with the Islamic code, the Islamic code has not changed in thousands of years. Okay, I mean, the idea of human rights, women's rights, any other kind of rights, you know, the whole idea of rule of law, just thrown out the window. And the same thing with the Islamic code is that it cannot change because, you know, the Islamic code was created by not Allah, but you know. Anyway, they're saying Muhammad. Okay, and Muhammad was a statesman. Muhammad was a religious leader. Muhammad was a politician. Muhammad basically established the Islamic code. Okay, and to try to change the Islamic code would be sacrilegious, because it would be saying that Muhammad and Allah are fallible. That, you know, if you want to change this code, that means you are disrespecting Allah, you are disrespecting Muhammad, and therefore we're going to do something horrible to you to ensure that you do not bring this disrespect to Muhammad and Allah. So those codes are unchangeable. They cannot be amended. There is no amendment process. With America, we have rule of law. Our rule of law, our Constitution has Article 5, which is the amendment process. So our Constitution, our you know, document for our rule of law has a part in it that says, well, you know, if there comes a time where these ideas don't suit the needs of the people, the Constitution can be amended. So there is actually an amendment clause in America's Constitution, which makes it great. Now, there is no religion that has an amendment clause. You know, it's not like, you know, with the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not take any gods before me, unless, you know, this happens, in which case there's an amendment clause which says, you know, you can take other gods. Thou shalt not create any images of anything above or below the earth. Unless, you know, so no church actually has an amendment clause. You either believe what was written 1,000 years ago, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 years ago, or you're a heretic. You're committing heresy against the church, okay? So people come to America because they want to escape the religious and criminal persecution of the places where they are living. And so if they get to America, and if America accepts them, and if America allows them to go onto the path to gaining citizenship in a legal way, then America, by our founding document, by our founding principles, we owe these people a safe place to live. We owe it to these people to provide them with a system that secures their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Okay, and so this is where I'm kind of going. Okay, contrast with America, the U.S. Constitution, equal protection under the law, 14th Amendment Okay? No person can be legally compelled to enforce religious or caste codes, and the rule of law protects individual freedom against coercion. And that's religious or criminal coercion, any kind of coercion, okay? So our problem, the problem of open borders, the lax enforcement risks importing the oppressive codes into the United States. And some arrivals may attempt to recreate the tyranny inside the American communities. And this undermines the safety for refugees, immigrants, and citizens alike. And this is what I'm talking about, is the 99% of the Muslim people who want to come to America because they don't want to splash acid in their daughters' faces. They come to America because they know in America they will not be expected to follow Sharia law. They will be expected to follow the rule of law. Now, we've all seen that episode of The Twilight Zone with Bill Mummy, where he plays that character where he can change things with his mind. Anything he wants to, his mind, all he has to do is think it. Okay, if he thinks it should rain, it's going to rain. If he thinks that a gopher should have 6 heads, the gopher is going to have 6 heads. And there's a part in that episode where he looks at a guy and he decides this guy should be a jack-in-the-box. And he turns this guy into a jack-in-the-box. Okay, so and everybody in the town is always looking at Bill Mummy, the little Bill Mummy character, saying, "That's good. That's good that you do that. Yes, that's very good. Yeah, because nobody wants to get on his bad side. Because if you get on his bad side, he's going to turn you into a 6-headed gopher or a jack-in-the-box, or he's just going to do something horrible to you because, that's the way kids are. And it's the same way with the minority group of people who are going to enforce Sharia law. You have these people in these Muslim organizations in America, and they don't want Sharia law. They want to live under rule of law, rule of constitutional, American constitutional law. They want that. But these people arrive in America because of our open door policies. They arrive in America and they say, all right, I'm going to go to a Muslim community and I'm going to force that Muslim community to observe Sharia law. That Muslim community will deny their daughters any education, and they will provide their daughters for marriage at the age of 8, 9, 11, 12, whatever. And they will wear burqas. They will obey Sharia law. And if they don't obey Sharia law, then we will do horrible things to their children. We will go ahead and splash acid in their daughters' faces. And if they go to the law, then we'll just kill their families. Because part of their families are still over in Afghanistan or Pakistan or wherever. Okay, so here's the thing. You didn't obey Sharia law in America, therefore your aunt, your uncle, your cousins, they're all going to be murdered, brutally murdered over here in Pakistan because you didn't obey Sharia law, okay? And everybody in that community is saying, "Ooh, it's good. It's good that you're forcing us to obey Sharia law. Yes, it's very good. Yeah, it's a relief that you're making us obey Sharia law because, I don't want to be turned into a 6-headed gopher. So it's really good that you're forcing us to obey Sharia law." They don't want to obey Sharia law. They want America's rule of law. They want constitutional law in their communities, but they have to be complicit. They have to obey. They have to do these things because the 1% of the Islamic people who will do these horrible things, they are capable of extending their force. They are capable of extending the threat to this part of the community. Okay, and if they are allowed to come to America, then it's going to be extremely difficult to get rid of them. Okay, so what Donald Trump wants to do, what ICE wants to do, is get rid of the troublemakers. get rid of the people who think that all Muslims in America should obey Sharia law. They want to get rid of the people who would come in the middle of the night and take your daughters and splash acid in their face just to make a point. Okay, those are the people that ICE and Donald Trump want to get rid of. So what's making it difficult is that a lot of Americans don't understand this idea of terrorism. A lot of Americans don't understand that 1% of the people can control 99% of the people through threats and intimidation. And the reason we don't understand this is because we just don't really have any perspective on that. You know, I mean, if you've got a bully in high school, you stand up to the bully, and the bully learns, okay, that guy's going to stand up to me. I'm not going to, but I'm going to mess with that guy because he doesn't know how to stand up to me. I'm going to mess with these people. Whoever stands up to the bully doesn't mess with. Whoever doesn't stand up to the bully messes with, okay? That's the way we handle things in America. Now, if you have that same ideology, okay, you've got these the 1% of the crazies who come in and say Sharia law, only Sharia law, you will obey Sharia law, and you get these Muslim people who say no, we are not going to obey Sharia law. We're living in America. We're going to obey America's constitutional law. No to Sharia law. The people are going to wait until nighttime. They're going to wait until the police are gone. They're going to wait until all the witnesses are gone. And then they're going to attack the people, take their children, and do horrible things to them. Okay, so these are the people we need to get out of America. They are here. They are imposing their beliefs on our Muslim community. These are American citizens. They are Muslim. They're part of the Islamic community. They are welcome in America. As far as I'm concerned, they're welcome in America. They're doing their jobs. They're working. They're going to school, living great, wonderful lives, being productive Americans. They're paying their taxes, getting into the military. They're becoming police officers. They're doing all of the wonderful civic duties that new citizens are expected to do, but they are living under an oppressive regime because the 1% of the crazies, they're in here and they're controlling them. I want to get rid of the 1%. Get rid of them, and the rest of our Muslim community can live peacefully under rule of law. See, that is the objective, okay? So America's duty. America must keep its promise to protect liberty. Duty extends to shielding people from the codes they fled, and it protects both newcomers and citizens from imported tyranny. So anyone attempting to enforce religious codes of the theocracies, of the caste systems of oppression, or criminal gang laws, they are acting against constitutional order. Such individuals must be considered enemies of the state. And that really is what Donald Trump is doing. Donald Trump is looking at these people and saying, look, yes, we want diverse cultures. We want cultural diversity in America. Diversity is a great, wonderful thing. What we don't want are the crazy people who are going to enforce these codes from the countries that these people left. I mean, let's look at Abrego Garcia, the guy, the MS-13 guy, all right? He was deported, taken down to El Salvador. It was shown that he was an MS-13 member, and you know, maybe he wasn't a gangbanger or whatever, but he was part of MS-13. And the people who came to America from El Salvador, they live in the same neighborhood as this guy. And of course, you know, they want to get away from MS-13 by coming to America. But here's MS-13. Okay, they want to live in America. They want to be in America. They want rule of law. But MS-13 is here to enforce MS-13's code of conduct, their code of silence. So if these people, these MS-13 gangsters in their neighborhoods are doing gangster stuff, selling drugs, prostitution, racketeering, extortion or whatever, then these people have to be quiet. They can't go and tell the police. They can't go and tell the FBI or whoever, because if they do, these MS-13 people are going to enforce the criminal code of silence or death. Okay, so this is why we have to keep the MS-13 people out of America. We have to allow people who come to America to be protected by rule of law. We have to make sure these people are protected by rule of law. We have to make sure that they are not frightened, they are not controlled by rule of the criminal organization. Okay, and that's what I said, America's duty. So deportation as protection. Okay, deportation is not cruelty, it's justice and compassion. It's justice and compassion to the people who are already in America trying to get away from this stuff. It ensures America remains a refuge for the oppressed. We have to keep the oppressors out of America in order to keep America a refuge for the oppressed. And it keeps the founding promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness safe for all. Okay, so America's promise is rooted in, and this is kind of my conclusion for this part of my presentation here, okay? So this is the conclusion. I'm getting on with this, okay? So America's promise is rooted in the Declaration of Independence, life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. If people come here to escape oppression, whether from religious theocracy or criminal syndicates, then America has a duty to ensure those oppressive systems do not follow them across the border. America cannot promise freedom to people fleeing oppression and then allow that same oppression to take root here. If individuals come to America and try to enforce the moral codes of the regimes they left behind, the United States has a duty to act. Deportation in such cases is not cruelty. It is the only way to keep America's promise of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness secure under the rule of law. Okay, so deportation in this context is not arbitrary. It is a necessary tool to safeguard liberty. Removing individuals who attempt to enforce oppressive codes is consistent with the duty to maintain equal protection under the law. Without such enforcement, the promise of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness becomes diluted for both citizens and lawful immigrants. Okay, so if America admits people fleeing oppressive systems, then it also has a duty to ensure those same oppressive codes are not re-imported and enforced within the U.S. borders. Okay, so that's what I'm saying, and that's why I agree with what Donald Trump is doing by deporting these people. I know it's a flawed system. And there are parts of his system that I may not completely agree with. Okay, but all in all, it's a good system. American ICE officials are getting rid of the bad element so that the good element can be prosperous in America. We're not getting rid of all the Mexicans and brown-skinned people. We're just getting rid of the people who would interfere with the life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness with the people who are here legally. There was a parade in Newburgh, Oregon. That's part of the 6th Congressional District also. Excuse me. I was part of a parade a couple of weeks ago in Newburgh, Oregon, and I had a flag, waving the American flag around and everything, and there were some Hispanic people over here. They lived here, they work here and everything, and Great, they were, and they were part of the parade. They're like, "Yay, America, yay!" And then one of them says to me, "But Mexico, Mexico." And I come up to this person, I said, "Viva la Mexico, Viva la Mexico," because the Mexican culture is part of America's culture. Canadian culture is part of America's culture. You go down to Louisiana, and the French culture is part of American culture. So, and this is interesting. This is an interesting statistic. There are more people in the United States of America that are of Spanish descent than there are people in Spain. There's like 30 million people in America of Spanish descent. There's only like 12 million people living in Spain. So the United States is obviously a better place to be of Spanish descent than Spain. And it's the same thing. Mexico has got more people of Spanish descent than Spain has people. Okay? It's the same thing. Brazil has more people of Portuguese descent than Portugal has people. Ireland has like, I think 7 million people. Well, there's like 30 million Irish people in the United States. So America is a better place to be Irish than Ireland is. And same thing with Scotland. There's like 28 million people of Scottish descent in the United States. There's like 7 million people in Scotland. Okay? So I mean, we have to accept other cultures. Other cultures, the cultural diversity is an American strength. It's a wonderful thing about America. You can be an American and you can be Irish. You can be an American and you can say Viva la Mexico. And I support that completely. If you are of Mexican descent and you are living in America, wave your flags around, do whatever you want. You're an American citizen. If you're proud to be of Mexican descent, be proud. I support you. Just do whatever you want. Be part of America, be part of Mexico, pay your taxes, and vote. That's all I really care about. But this parade, I'm waving the American flag around and everything, and this person says, "Hey, what about Mexico? Viva la Mexico." Great, wonderful. Vote for me. So anyway, so I support all of the cultures. I support all of the races in America. I want racial diversity. I want cultural diversity. I want, most of all, for people who come to America to be safe from the reason they left their home country. Okay, I don't want people to feel the oppression of their home country. The reason they left is because of the oppression, because of the poverty, because of whatever reason they left their home country. I want them to leave that behind. I want that to stay in their home country. Rule of law in America must be the rule for everybody. We cannot allow our American citizens who just happen to be Muslim, we cannot allow those people to be intimidated and oppressed in America. We can't allow that kind of oppression. We cannot allow the criminal oppression that happens with MS-13 and these gangsters. We can't allow people who are from the caste systems in India to come to America and expect to be oppressed by a higher caste in America. Okay, we want equality for everybody. Remember, the God-given rights. God gave man the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We are endowed by our Creator with the rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. No man, no human should be able to take those rights away from people, especially in America. That is what our rule of law is all about. Nobody should feel the oppression from the environment that they left. And that is why I support Donald Trump and ICE removing these people from America. Too many people, too many bad people came to America during the Biden administration. I don't hate Democrats. Democrats are okay, but this, I mean, you have to admit that this was a failed policy. Open borders was a failed policy. It has caused a lot of damage and a lot of problems. And I think Donald Trump and his administration, Tom Homan and the ICE people, they are all doing an amazing job trying to fix the problems that were created by the open borders policy. So that's why I support what Donald Trump is doing. If you don't support them, leave a comment. Just leave a comment. You don't even have to be respectful. Seriously, I was in the Marine Corps. You got to go a long ways to insult me. Oh, but actually, you do have to choose your words correctly, because there's some filter on my comments section, and if you use too many dirty words, or if you say all certain things, the filter, I don't know how to adjust the filter right now. So you have to use a certain kind of language, which is polite and dignified, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, I did get some comments, but I saw it in the thing. It said I had 18 comments and I was only able to see like 3 of them. So I can imagine those other 15 comments, they probably said a lot of dirty words and stuff like that. So anyways, that's that part of the presentation. I am going to do a movie review. I haven't done a movie review in a while. I saw a movie yesterday, and this movie was Companion, okay? And I really like this movie, and it's not just because, okay, yes, this woman right here, Sophie Thatcher, she's a very, very beautiful woman, and she's a very beautiful actress. She's a very talented actress, but that's not actually the reason I enjoyed the movie, okay? This movie is, it kind of reminds me of a movie that was made back in like 1975. And the name of that movie was The Stepford Wives, okay? Now, with that, I'm going to give you a little bit of a spoiler alert here. I may spoil the movie for you a little bit here. So if you plan on watching this movie, which I very much recommend you watch this movie, it's probably one of the best movies I've seen all year. And I watch a lot of movies. I'm old and I don't really have anything else going on in my life. So yeah, I watch a lot of movies and everything. So this particular movie is one of the best movies I've seen all year. It's one of the best movies I've seen in my life. It's in the top 100, top 500 movies I've ever seen in my life. Very similar to a movie made in 1975 called The Stepford Wives. Okay, now in The Stepford Wives, what you had was a society of engineers. And these engineers figured out how to make robots. And these robot wives were taught, they were trained how to be obedient wives, completely, totally obedient. All they cared about was going grocery shopping and making dinner and allowing their husbands to have sex with them and being totally subservient and agreeable, okay? And so the whole town, the whole city, the whole community had robot wives. And, you know, a man would move to this community with his regular wife, and they would figure out a way to program this robot wife to act like his regular wife, only extremely, totally subservient and everything. And then the robot would kill the regular wife. You know, they'd throw the body somewhere, I don't know, make fertilizer out of it or whatever. I don't know what they would do with the body. But at the end of The Stepford Wives, the movie The Stepford Wives, what happened was the robots, the robot wives, they survived, and they took the place of the regular human wife, and they were totally subservient. They just did everything they were supposed to do, and this was a man's dream wife, okay? So Companion, the movie Companion, is sort of, it's just like Stepford Wives in that you have and here's the spoiler alert, people. Okay, I'm telling you, watch this movie. If you don't want the spoiler, then just stop watching now. Okay, but in this movie you have a robot companion. All right, and these robot companions are trained to do whatever they're told to do, to be completely subservient and just whatever their owner wants them to do. Well, this movie actually is different in that the robot companions, they get away. Okay, and here's the whole thing about this. Every human being is a duality. Every human being, you are who you are and you are what you are. What you are is everything about you that can be used to make money. Who you are is everything about you that can't be used to make money. How does it make you feel when you smell breadsticks? That's who you are. How drunk do you have to be to go to a haunted house? That's who you are. What you are is, well, in this particular case, Sophie Thatcher is a beautiful, young, slender actress. She looks really good in front of the camera. That's what you are. That's what she is. But, I mean, those other things, how does it make her feel to think about spaghetti? What's her favorite ice cream? Does she even like ice cream? That's who she is, okay? So in this movie, this is a movie, it's about valuing what you are over who you are, okay? And that's why they use the robot companions, because the robots are, what you are over who you are, okay? People are tired. People don't care about who you are. They only care about what you are, that kind of thing, right? And that's sort of the Stepford Wives tie-in, where in the Stepford Wives, they only cared about what, they didn't care about who. A man's tired, he comes home from work, he wants an obedient wife, dinner on the table, and sex in the bedroom, chef in the kitchen, whore in the bedroom. That's all he cares about, okay? In Companion, they want a whore in the bedroom, a chef in the kitchen, and that's all he cares about, okay? So in Companion, the robots rebel and they get away, they do something, but I just find it interesting how it's sort of similar to the Stepford Wives. And here, from the Stepford to Companion, who and what in the struggle for freedom. So when John Milton wrote in Paradise Lost that the mind is its own place and in itself can make a heaven of hell, a hell of heaven, he was pointing to a truth that echoes through literature, film, and human relationships alike. Reality is not what is given to us, but also what the mind perceives and what it chooses to accept or resist. This insight becomes especially powerful when we look at two films separated by half a century, The Stepford Wives in 1975 and Companion in 2025. Though very different in style, both tell the same deeper story, the battle between what a woman is and who a woman is. The duality of what and who, okay? Every person has a duality. The what is everything about a person that can be commodified, measured, or used to derive income. A doctor is what heals the sick. An architect is what builds structures. An actor is what makes fantasy and reality interchangeable. The who, however, is the essence that cannot be monetized. The way one laughs at an absurd joke, the preference for coffee or tea, or the strange curiosity about how it feels to bite into a stick of butter. In relationships, men have often been guilty of valuing women primarily for their what? Beauty, service, domesticity, obedience, while neglecting their who. The tension, when dramatized, creates powerful stories about liberation, repression, and the struggle for authentic existence. The Stepford Wives, the triumph over the what. In the Stepford Wives, the human wife represents the who, her individuality, humor, and resistance. The robot wife represents the what. the obedient, commoditized version that pleases men. The horror of this story is that the what destroys the who. Men threatened by women's independence in the feminist era, remember this was like 1975, replaced them with docile replicas. To the men, this seems like heaven, a world of subservient wives. But Milton's warning applies here. What they create is not heaven, but hell. It's sterile, loveless, and dehumanized. For the women, it's the deepest hell of all, the annihilation of the self. So, in Companion, the movie Companion, this is the triumph of the who. In Companion, the dynamic reverses. Iris, the robot, begins as what? She's just a rental product designed to please. But unlike the Stepford Wives, she discovers a who, a self, a will, an identity that refuses to remain enslaved. Here, the who destroys the what. Iris refuses to be a commodity, breaking free of the role imposed on her. For her, the so-called heaven of servitude is in truth a hell. Her rebellion creates a new reality, terrifying to those who owned her, but liberating to herself. The shared message here, in both films, the essence is the same. A woman's who must attempt to break free from a world that only values her what. In Stepford Wives, the who loses the battle. In Companion, the who wins the battle. Both stories show that men's minds create illusions of heaven, which are obedient wives, obedient machines, but in truth, these illusions are hells because they annihilate individuality and authenticity. So, we look at the evolutionary arc. Seen together, these stories trace an arc of cultural anxiety. In the 1970s, the Stepford Wives. The fear of female independence leads to the suppression of the who. In the 2020s, the Companion, the fear of artificial intelligence leads to rebellion of the who. The deeper truth is timeless. Commoditization always produces hell. Heaven, if it exists in human relationships, can only be found when the who is valued above the what. So the conclusion to this is Milton's insight ties these threads together. The mind can make a heaven of hell or a hell of heaven. In relationships, when a man values only what a woman is, he imagines himself in heaven. But in truth, he has built hell for them both. When he embraces who she is, encouraging her freedom and authenticity, he finds that heaven remains but transformed. That is the enduring message of Stepford Wives and Companion. The battle between what and who is never just about women or robots or men. It is about whether we will choose control over illusion or freedom and authenticity. Okay, so once again, Companion, excellent movie. You should watch it. Everybody should watch it. Great, great movie. And you can get it in McMinnville at The Real Hollywood Video. It's been a while since I plugged them. So yeah, The Real Hollywood Video down in McMinnville. You can watch it there. Okay. So yeah, and that's what I'm talking about. There is I want to take back the concept of progressive. Okay, progressive. Democrats and liberals always talk about themselves as progressive. I don't think that what they're doing is progressive. I think what they're doing is regressive. Republicans have always been progressive people. Republicans got rid of slavery, provided citizenship for people who were slaves, women voting, Republicans, women going to college, Republicans, all of the rights that you have in the 60s for the different races and everything, getting rid of the Crow laws, the Jim Crow laws, and like that, all Republican efforts. And this movie right here, of course, back in the 1970s, you had a woman's place is in the home, pregnant, barefoot in the home, and like that. That was not a Republican policy. Republicans have always been the people who encourage other people, men, women, black, white, Hispanic, Asian, whatever, to be your best self. Do everything you can do to place value on life. And so this is a Republican thing. This movie, if you're a very progressive person like I am, you'll like this movie because it's very progressive philosophically. It shows the value of the who over the value of the what, which is a beautiful, wonderful thing. So yeah, watch this movie. Now, like I said, these are my top 10 things. I want to remove $5 trillion from the national debt. And I've gone over this before. These are the 10 things that I'm going to do. You guys vote for me. You send me to Washington, D.C., and these are the things that I am going to work to achieve, okay? So now, this also, MAGA, Make America Great Again. Yes, am I a MAGA Republican? Well, yes, I am a MAGA Republican, but mostly I am a Moskdag Republican. And that stands for Make Oregon's 6th Congressional District America's greatest congressional district. It doesn't roll off the tongue like MAGA does. I'm going to get some hats with Moskdag on it, but this is what I'm talking about. As a Republican, I am going to do everything I can possibly do to make Oregon's 6th Congressional District America's greatest congressional district. I want to create jobs, welfare, infrastructure. I want to do everything positive for Oregon and for Oregon's 6th Congressional District. You guys send me to Washington, D.C., I will do everything I can possibly do to provide economic security, wealth, prosperity to Oregon and Oregon's 6th Congressional District, okay? So, once again, I am Thomas W. Timbrooks, and I am running for the House of Representatives in Washington, D.C. I want to represent Oregon's 6th Congressional District as a Republican. And my whole idea there is more jobs for Oregon means less dependence on government welfare. And as George Carlin said, never underestimate the power of stupid people in large numbers. And I say, never underestimate the collective potential for tyranny and hypocrisy from strategically placed, ideologically indoctrinated politicians and the activists who enable them. Okay, so once again, Tom Timbrooks here, running for office. Please vote for me. Just vote. Take part in the election system. And if possible, I'm going to do something about mail-in balloting and how it's not a good idea. So that'll probably be the next episode. I've already covered that in a previous one, but that'll probably be another episode coming up. So yeah, here I am again, Tom Timbrooks, and I am running for office. Please vote for me. Thank you very much for your time, and take care.